and thank you for joining me for RFTV. Today I wanted to go into a topic that is really interesting and important for public policy and conservation in Oregon and Washington. And the issue that so many of you have asked about is what's going on the Malheur National Forest, and what is the Eastside Restoration Initiative all about? And if I'm not on one of those Eastside forests, what does it mean to me? Well, let's try to demystify some of those questions. First, talking about the Malheur. The origin of this issue goes back to late 2012 when a mill in John Day, Oregon announced that it would close up for business, and because it didn't have adequate supply of large logs. The congressional delegation, the community or collaboratives that work on the Malheur, and the forest personnel themselves were really interested in coming together to see if there was a different kind of a future that could be designed to the benefit of the community as well as the forest, and the answer to that was yes. And here's what we've done for the Malheur forest. The Malheur folks have agreed to dramatically increase the program of forest restoration, which would, as a consequence, produce even more timber volume for the wood products industry in eastern Oregon. That's good news. Now, while we cannot assure in the Forest Service that such logs will in fact flow to the mill that is going to be closed, by providing additional supply to the wood products market in eastern Oregon inevitably there will be more available, and presumably that will have a benefit on the mill that announced closure. Anyway, the reaction by the community has been very, very favorable, and it was a consequence of support by the local collaboratives in support of the forest's recommendation that we increase the program of forest management. That encouraged me to communicate with Oregon senators and the local congressional representative that this was worthwhile as an issue of public policy, and we'd all work together to see that it is going to happen. Now, the Malheur forest, while it is in eastern Oregon, shares with three other forests, the Ochiko, the Umatilla, and the Wallowa-Whitman, a common ecosystem, and the issue is characterized by a large-scale wildfire. And therefore, what has occurred on the Malheur in terms of increasing forest management has led us to observe, appropriately so, that there are opportunities on those other three forests. And that has led to the Eastside initiative, and hopefully that will lead also to a ramp up of the program of forest management, and ultimately, in the case of all four national forests in eastern Oregon, that would lead to a reduction in wildfire losses. This will take time, but if we continue to operate and to execute programs at our current pace, we are really condemned to a future in which large-scale wildfire will be the dominant signature over the landscape. In contrast, if we do what it is that we intend to do, which is to ramp up that program of work, we have an opportunity to change wildfire behavior. It will not eliminate it from the landscape. That wouldn't be even ecologically appropriate. However, it will give us the advantage to restore those forests to a more favorable condition. And if I could describe it in the simplest of terms, what we have is an overabundance of densely stocked and mature stands. And what we'd like to have is a more natural condition of more open mature stands. And there would be an array of age classes as well. So that forest would have its roots in historical experience in eastern Oregon. Well, now if we talk about eastern Oregon, some would ask why are you just confining yourselves to the Blue Mountains? Great question. We've got issues elsewhere on the east side, Oregon and Washington alike. For example, the Colville Forest is involved in some very interesting experiments with respect to forest restoration and forest health. The Okanagan the same. The Deschutes and the Fremont-Wainema also have collaboratives that are underway and have Collaborative Forestry Landscape Restoration Act grants have been given to those forests to accelerate the pace of restoration. If you're on the west side, the situation with respect to restoration is different. There it is an aquatic ecosystem issue that we have to cope with because of the listed species under the Endangered Species Act that are in jeopardy, and also we'd like to accelerate the program of old forest management. So for the entire region, the issue of restoration has a local definition. It should have an environmental payoff that we believe would be appropriate for our future, and lastly that there ought to be an economic and community benefit. All these things are coming together. I appreciate you joining me this morning. Thanks very much.